So what I'm really passionate about is being part of Child and Youth Friendly Christchurch, which is a movement. There's a whole group of government and non-government organisations that we're trying to create a really child and youth friendly city. There is 900 cities across the globe that have taken on this challenge to become as child friendly as they can and really put the needs of children at the heart of everything they do. So you've got from Calcutta to Rotterdam, from Bogota to Leeds. You know, this is something that any culture can take on. There is a whole accreditation process run by UNICEF. It's a UNICEF initiative, but I think it also needs to be defined by every community. I mean, I just look around at the rebuild and it's great to see things like this fantastic playground, but there's so much more we could do. What I'd like to see is I'd like to see every plan, every decision, every project considered through the eyes of a child. What are the impacts on our young citizens of every decision that we're doing? I mean, we're rebuilding our city, but it's future generations that are going to really benefit or suffer from bad decisions that are made now. So in Rotterdam, they consulted with children and young people and discovered that one of the major problems they faced is being able to travel around the city. So their answer to that was to create a network of safe streets so that children could travel safely around the city. So that is the kind of initiative we're looking for. It's about asking children and young people what's important to them and planning around their needs and rights. Well, I know that there's a kind of general belief that everything's great for kids in Christchurch, but I think it's a really mixed picture. And we've got to remember that in our community, there's 8,000 notifications to Child, Youth and Family every single year, reports of concerns about children's welfare. There's about 8,000 family violence incidents reported to the police every single year, and many of those will involve children. You know, in common with the rest of the country, we have about a third of our children living in poverty. We have a big problem with youth homelessness. You know, everything is not great. Yes, there's been some really interesting surveys done of high school students in Christchurch, and self-reported about 30% of high school students report that they have been physically harmed or hit by somebody in the last 12 months. So, you know, that's a pretty high level of violence, a third. So not safe for all young people. And I mean, that's what we want to see. We want to see every child being able to reach their potential.
Smile. What's up? Hello, what's up?
We know that childhood is such an important stage in life. It sets the foundation for the adults we become. Investment in children and young people really reaps long-term returns. Now, in terms of having a better educated workforce, a healthier workforce, less antisocial behaviour and crime. You know, we think being a child-friendly city makes it friendly for everybody because it's more accessible, it's better for older people, and you know, it makes Christchurch an even more attractive place to work or to live. I mean, let's face it, they're the only section of the population, the under 18s, who don't even have a right to vote. So they are the most disenfranchised in many ways and the most vulnerable. And we saw a presentation from one of the leaders from Leeds Council in the UK, and they've really taken on the child-friendly city idea, and they've really seen actual tangible changes like less children coming into care, less young people not in education or training, higher education results. And we saw this presentation and it was so powerful. We kind of all looked at each other and said, well, why aren't we doing this? Here we are rebuilding our city and we're not even thinking about what children and young people need. $1 billion, to me that's a staggering sum of money for a country like New Zealand. But you know, I just look at that money and I think, well, what if we had a really bold ambition for our community to say, no Christchurch kid ever lives in a cold home, no Christchurch young person is ever homeless because it is proper supported housing. Every community has a safe place, a clean place for children to play. Every school has cycle paths to get there. You know, what about giving free transport to young people on buses? They do that in London. Couldn't we just afford to do that? Wouldn't cost $1 billion. There's so many things we could do. I'd love to see businesses offering mentoring opportunities to vulnerable young people. You know, I'd like to see every child in need get a free school lunch. You know, $1 billion could go a very long way. And I would say, well, what is the return on a conference centre versus the return on the next generation? This is about creating a movement in our city, about really mobilising people to do things to make Christchurch a better place for children and young people. So check out our website. It's www.childandyouthfriendlychristchurch.org.nz.